Welcome to Mastering the Art of Real Estate. I'm your host, Debbi DiMaggio, and we are here today with Tiffany Lee of New York City, the power, the poker broker. Yeah, the poker broker. She is rebranding herself as the poker broker. Let's welcome Tiffany Lee.
Hi, Debbie. Nice to be here. I'm super excited. Thanks for
I
having
know I'm
me.
super excited to have you after getting to meet you live and in person in New York a few weeks ago. It was so fun.
We had a blast. There was a lot of rosé. It was
Yeah.
yeah.
It
Going
was
around.
very, very fun. So Tiffany is with us from New York, and she is rebranding herself as the poker broker. And we're going to get more into that. She's going to tell us why. And we're going to introduce her really quickly here, and then we're going to dive into it. Tiffany's all in approach to real estate is like a well crafted poker strategy, carefully calculated yet bold, earning her loyal clients through honest, data driven advice. With a background in tournament poker, comedy, and graphic design, she brings a playful yet polished style to her work, ensuring clients succeed while enjoying the journey. Passionate about altruistic capitalism, Tiffany believes in using her expertise to uplift others, fostering community and collaboration in her real estate practice. Graduating summa cum laude from New York University, she transitioned from advertising to real estate in 2013, balancing her career with a successful poker stint, including 2 World Series of poker final table finishes. Well, you are very impressive.
Thank
and,
you.
and very funny. I remember the first time we met. I said, "Are you a comedian?" And you said, "Well, kind of." And
I've
then
lived a million lives, like a cat, like nine
yes,
different lives. Not yeah.
I think I think realtors are kind of like that though. Because you've done a lot of different things, and we can bring all those different sides of us into real estate. Sometimes we do need to cheer up our clients, and we need to throw in a little comedy, or sometimes we need to play the mother side and take care of them and nurture them. But before we go deep into that, how long have you been in real estate, and how did you get started, and what led you into real estate?
Sure. So I started real estate back in 2013. So coming up on a little bit over a decade at this point. How I got into it was I always had an interest in real estate investing. And so I took my real estate agent licensing course and kind of almost accidentally fell into being a salesperson role. It didn't occur to me to do that, but my background in advertising was in advertising sales anyway. And I always wanted to own my own business, have basically more control over how my day looks. And I don't think that I was very good at corporate. The 9 to 5 life wasn't for me. I didn't really enjoy the office politics of things. So having a lot of control over who my clientele is, who I want to work with, and kind of having like your vibe attracts your tribe. I think that's how the saying goes.
Yeah.
So I've just become a happier person for it. Like I remember being miserable on my like morning commutes to the city, like for the 9 to 5. We'd have 8 a.m. meetings. So it wasn't even a 9 to 5. It was crazy. So being able to have a sleep schedule that I'm okay with because I'm a night owl is has been a great adjustment. So yeah, does that answer the question? I know I tend to go
No,
all over the place. Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. So, okay, so you corporate job, I agree with you. I was very shortly and I worked for a magazine, and I remember I wanted to move up, and they didn't want to move me up and to display sales or something, and I was like, "You're going to tell me what to do? I work really hard. I don't want anyone controlling my destiny." And then a couple of years later, someone invited me to start working with them in rentals in San Francisco. And I started doing that. And I'm like, this is so fun. No one tells me what to do. I can work as hard as I want. I'm getting paid for it. I have to put the deals together and I make it happen. But I agree with you. And I think a lot of the people who I've interviewed and a lot of people in real estate, they do come from careers and corporate life. And it's just, yeah, we want to create our own destiny. And we like to work hard. You have to work hard and you have to be
Yeah.
passionate, as you know.
And you actually bring up a great point. Sorry to interject,
No,
but like,
not
yeah,
at
I
all.
I remember being very, like, such a go-getter in my early 20s, like straight out of college. I got my job in corporate. And to your point, I would raise my hand for promotions all the time. And it was like totally out of my hands. And, I
Right.
not to be like entitled or deserving, but I felt like I worked harder than a lot of people, but I didn't. But because I was working so hard, I wasn't doing the whole office politics, schmoozing, butt kissing thing. That is what gets people promoted. So that never resonated with me. I kind of had a chip on my shoulder about that. So what I love about real estate is, your clients are gonna love you for, what you bring to the table, and it's authentic in that way. And I never feel like I have to be somebody else, like, just to be corporate. Yeah,
Right.
I think you can tell from, like, speaking with me. I'm very blunt, and I don't and I like to tell jokes that might, be a little like, HR might not love it all the time,
Right. No,
but
and
it's
we don't
fun.
we don't have the personalities to want to have to play the game. It's just not
Yeah,
in our nature, so it doesn't work because that's not something we care to play. I mean, it
right.
works for people, and people have done very well with it and make a lot of money that way. But it's not something in our DNA to be able to have to play the game.
Yeah.
So I totally get that. So let's talk about poker. Where does that fit in playing poker beforehand? How did you get into poker? And then now, and then tell us about this new brand you're just launching.
So I actually picked up the game. I found the game in college. A lot of friends would play in the common area. I also saw it. It had a lot of coverage on ESPN as well. Like, poker was all over TV when I was in college. I actually had a lot of friends who did so well playing poker online that they dropped out of college completely
Oh
and just
my,
did that because they were making so much money versus finishing their studies, which, good for them. I didn't do that. My parents would kill me if I did that. But I thought about it. But it had always been in the back of my mind that it was something that I wanted to take very seriously. I remember back in college, me and a few of my guy friends, we didn't have our driver's license yet, so there would be a $15 bus that we would take from Chinatown to Atlantic City, and you
oh,
just get the seaiest people on the bus. And I remember my friends would get on the bus first and sit next to the normal looking people, and I was like left with, the crazies. That I was like, okay, thanks for being a gentleman, guys. Like, but
oh
um,
my. And how old were you when
yeah,
you were doing this? How old were you when you were going down playing poker?
for the intent of this podcast, I was 21 the whole time.
Okay.
I was 21.
21
Uh,
to
yeah,
play
I was
poker.
21.
Okay. It's long gone now, but okay.
Yeah,
I don't gamble, so I didn't know. But I thought, wait, you
I'm
must be
kidding.
kidding.
No, I was 21.
Okay.
Statute of limitations is like 10 years, right? I don't
Okay.
know. But no, I was 21. I was, let's cut that. Damn, let's cut that out.
Okay.
Let's cut that out. I'm kidding.
All right. So you were in college, and you were at NYU, and you were going down to Atlantic City. How often were you going down and playing poker?
It was almost like probably every weekend. Anytime we had downtime, me and my friends would go down there. We would play cash games. And then I didn't get into tournaments really until like 2016. But they're totally different strategies. But I just loved it, and I love studying it. I actually pay for courses. You know how people, like salespeople, do like the whole Tom Ferry and pay for like
Right.
sales coaching, and they invest in themselves in that way. I
Right.
all the money that I probably should be putting towards like sales coaching and stuff like that goes towards poker coaching and poker lessons. Like, I probably spend a comparable amount of money than like sales coaching. But I feel like, to your point of melding, this
Right.
new brand together, it kind of like feeds into, like, I kind of still arrived at the same place. And
Right.
I have
No.
that.
So let's talk about that. Tell us I always equate watching my son play lacrosse all his life in football. And I would equate, as I was watching him, very similar to real estate and having to pivot and adjust all the time. I remember seeing him constantly pivoting, and I'm like, that's pretty much what we have to do all the time. We never know what's going to happen. And you say something in your write up that's very similar. So I compare it to sports and watching my son play. So tell us about poker and how similar it is to real estate and how it meshes, because it does.
I love that you brought up lacrosse and sports because, like I said, poker was on ESPN. It's like a mind sport. So I like to say, oh, yeah, I'm a professional athlete, but I'm sedentary and I sit there with like 9 other people who are super out of shape. But it is. It's like, to your point, there is a lot of mental adjustments that need to be made. You have to have that, like, elite level athletic mindset of like visualizing what you want to get done and kind of having a plan and really being locked in the moment, and just being very aware of your surroundings and very aware of what how other people are playing and developing a counter strategy, because everyone's like, it's, you need a very competitive nature to be in it, which is funny because like me, a good friend of mine, also a professional poker player, recently repivoted to real estate. I felt we both felt like being in poker for so long kind of took something from us. Like it took the nice human side of us away that real
Right.
estate is kind of restoring. So because in poker you're like looking for leaks and exploitative strategies, like everyone's going for each other's necks. So like just having that skill set but using it for good instead of like evil is kind of what the real estate repivot helps like
Yeah, I
bring
can't
that
imagine.
out.
I assume that you're at a table and you're probably at a table with a lot of men, and it's probably so cutthroat, which I can't imagine you doing that, but
It's
right.
funny. My personality at the table is very different from my real estate personality, especially when I'm like very focused and locked in a hand. I sometimes like most times I don't even talk, but I've started to like loosen up lately and be a little bit more friendly.
Right.
But generally, like I kind of just have my mean game face on most of the time. If you Google pictures of me online playing poker, I look so mean. Even
I
my mom was showing people, she was like, "You look like you're giving everyone like a death glare," which I kind of was. Yeah.
I guess that's the mindset, which is, in real estate or anything, you have to have a mindset. So let's talk about mindset in real estate and poker and mindset and real estate and how it all kind of goes together and how you do what you do in real estate. And poker helped guide you there too. And
Sure. So it takes a lot of discipline, and I'm sure you see that every day. And you're such a successful real estate agent. The only way to get there is to do good things and do them with a high frequency and do them disciplined, like be disciplined about it, be gritty about it. And even if things don't go your way, as long as you keep showing up and have good fundamentals down, the scoreboard will take care of itself. I think I got
that
that from the book Atomic
that
Habits. Yeah.
oh, I love that book. That is really good. It is too. It's about showing up. I'm a realtor for 35 years, but I also coach agents. We have 80, maybe 90 agents now. And as they come in, I coach them and get them set up. And one of the agents the other day says, well, what do you do? How do people get business? How do they get into it? And it's consistency, and it's showing up every single day, not just on one Sunday open house and thinking you're going to be successful. When people say to my husband, how is Debbi so successful? And he's like, you have no idea how hard she works. And she, like, all the time, she's always working. My son Chase, who works with us now, when he was in middle school, he wrote something, and it was this little write-up and for a class, and it said, my dad has to take the computer off my mom's lap when she's falling asleep at night, because she's just sitting there working till she falls asleep. So it's consistency, it's the compound effect, it just you can't stop, and you have to be out there meeting people, right? We were meeting,
Yeah.
connecting, and we met on in a mindset group, mastermind group, and we're constantly meeting other agents so we can refer back and forth. And then you just introduced me to some people in the senior space, and we're always looking, just as we talk to the audience, we're always looking to connect and help one another. And when we help someone, it always somehow comes back to us.
Yeah. And you mentioned something that, like, you falling asleep in front of your laptop just working, you have to love it, right? You have to love what you're doing. You have to be passionate about it, because if that's absent from the equation, everyone else is going to beat you. Someone who loves it more and wants it more is going to do better than the person who is just like, I'm kind of over it. And yeah.
Absolutely. You have to be, it's no different. Actors, and if they want to succeed, and I'm so not into that space because it just looks so hard, but they have to be so into it because there's always the next person and the next person. And if they don't love it and want to do it and keep perfecting their craft, someone's going to pass them right up. Same in sports, but you do have to love it. Tonight, my husband said, I've been sick since I got back from New York. And he said, we are doing something tonight. We are not staying home. He's like, because you will be on that computer all night. So I said, all right, I'll think about what I want to do. There's nothing, fly to New York or LA is what I want to do. But so I have to come up with something. Okay. Oh, well, let's go to commercial break real quick. So we take a break, and we'll be right back with Tiffany Lee, the poker broker. Welcome back to Mastering the Art of Real Estate. I'm your host, Debbi DiMaggio. We are here with Tiffany Lee from New York City. Tiffany, in your opinion, what are some of the common misconceptions that people have about the real estate industry, and how would you debunk them?
Ooh, okay. Um, some people think that they can do it on their own. That's a big misconception, and then they get overwhelmed with the amount of work and steps and nuances that they have to navigate at each phase of a deal, that I think what happens is they see agents do it so quickly that they think that it's easy. It's because we make it look easy. We put so many hours into it where we know how to kind of streamline the decision making. And so I think, the way it gets debunked is when they decide to do it on their own and then I get a message asking for help. Like they debunked it themselves. And I'm like, I don't know enough history about what you did along the way that got
Right.
you into this mess. So I can give very like high level advice and, wish you
Yeah.
the best of luck, but you should have listened to your agent if you had one. And sometimes they're coming to me from different markets too. So I can't even like represent them, but I'm like, they're like, oh, is my agent doing the right thing? I'm like, just trust your agent. Like there's nothing I could, yeah, yeah. So
No,
I think that's
it's
the
so,
misconception is, yeah. Mm-hmm.
and all agents are different. I'm working with the client now, and she was buying a house back east, and she said, "Oh, the realtor has done nothing." She's like, and she was asking me questions, and I was trying to help her because I don't specialize in Vermont, and so anyway, yeah, she said she was getting no help, and I said, "Well, try this and this, and speak to your mortgage broker about that." And but yeah, agents are so different. Agents are so different. The amount of work or the amount of attention that they put in. Clearly, we're not like that. But yeah, it's tough. So how do you stay motivated? You're well, I also want to get into this other thing that you're doing with investments, but how do you stay motivated and how handle the challenges and setbacks in your business?
So staying motivated is, I see like so many agents burn out a lot. I've been guilty of that early on too. Like I've burned out. So now I'm more mindful of taking time off so that I don't burn out, and then so that the hours that I'm putting into it are meaningful hours,
Right.
and I'm focused and doing things that actually contribute to my business versus just like just staring off into like my computer screen, being overwhelmed, right? So yeah, so staying motivated is like taking time to take care of yourself, make sure you're well rested, make sure you're like eating healthy. Like that's just the baseline, right? Is having
Right.
that work life balance. Because I ran into that with poker as well, where I would get burnt out because I would put like 12-hour days in just sitting at a table, like yeah, and people do that, and I would
Staring.
get
Imagine you're
exhausted.
just staring, like you're just
Yeah.
so focused. You're not even like,
Yeah, and then
uh,
your brain is like fried at the end of the day. And so you need that time to recharge. And I feel like that's the case with real estate as well, because there's so much emotions involved. So sometimes I need to recharge that battery so that I can show up as my best self for my clients instead of, kind of, I want to bring my A game every time.
absolutely.
Yeah. So.
So I always, yeah, I usually say this at the end, but do you have a morning routine, and how do you take care of yourself?
So my morning routine is I have a ritual. I always have to make coffee before I talk to anyone. Otherwise, it's a totally different person that you're you're talking to. So
I
that's
know
my
you love
morning.
your
Yeah,
coffee.
yeah. I love my coffee. So yeah, make my morning coffee, settle in, look at my to-do list. I'm starting this new thing where I'm dedicating my mornings to only lead gen. Right. I'm like emailing new people, making phone calls, like following up on the new touches so that I can fill my pipeline. And then like midday, I will dedicate that block of time to just moving active deals along, and following up there. And then I book like my site visits or showings for the end of the day. So I
Okay.
have time to commute. So just the time blocking and having that structure
Right.
keeps it moving along, and isn't so overwhelming. Because when I remember early on, I would like not have any time management skills and just be all over the place, like, oh, this person wants a showing, yeah, I'll make it at that time. Oh, I'm getting pulled away because someone's asking a question, or I have to put this document together, and it was just chaotic. So I would say time blocking and setting proper boundaries with clients
Right.
and setting proper expectations. So, like, I saw this meme that's like, hey, people please. I feel like a lot of salespeople are inherently people pleasers. So, I saw
Yeah.
this funny meme that was like, hey, people pleasers, how many people are actually pleased with you right now? Which I thought was really funny because you overpromise and then you're like so overwhelmed and like,
And then you get so tired, you're like,
yeah,
oh my God, I can't do it again.
exactly.
No, that's so true. And you have to, do you work out? Or do you try to work out? And
I do. So I used to be really big into rock climbing, and I've recently stopped doing that just because I'm getting older, and I'm like, I can't take a fall. I'm gonna be out of control. And it's dangerous. Like, and that's like another mental thing. But I did do a lot of rock climbing at one point. And then now I'm trying to find a new sport. I do pickleball. You do pickleball too.
yeah,
You're a big
so
pickleball
fun.
fan. Yeah, I love
Yeah.
pickleball.
I
So
gotta
that's
get
another
you.
thing. Yeah,
You have to come out and visit, and we'll go play pickleball.
I
I'm
love
not a serious pickleballer, but it's. I mean, there's so many people that are so serious. I love it, but I'm not serious. Um, Can you provide some valuable tips? Okay, let's talk for about towards agents. Like, how are you lead genning? Are generating leads? Are you in a group? Are you in a networking group? Are you part of sports teams, or what are you? How are you getting your leads?
So organically, right? They always tell you like, what's your sphere of influence? So I try to go to weekly poker games because you're sitting
Okay.
around 9 people forever, and I try to make sure the makeup of the players at that poker game are people who can actually transact real estate. That sounds really mean, right? Because most like full time poker players probably can't qualify for a mortgage. But I try to go to the games where like I know attorneys will be there, like more like professional, like they're not serious players, but it's
Yeah.
good. It's the games where like I don't, it's more relaxed. I don't have to be so cutthroat. I can just make conversation and just be fun and playful about it. People get to know my personality at the table. Like the poker player I am now is so different from the poker player I was 10 years ago that like took it too seriously to the point where like I was not a nice person to be around. But these days, like I've managed to balance it and find that zen of like I can still play my game and be relaxed and have a conversation with the person next to me and get to know them. And so you're doing that for hours on end and you see the same people over and over again. So that's kind of like how I did my Legion. Actually, that's actually funny. One of my I managed to do like a $3 million condo sale at a
Wow,
poker table once, and it was off market.
that's
That
awesome.
was cool. Yeah. Yeah.
So tell the audience how that happened because not everyone knows what that means.
Oh, okay. So I lived at this luxury condo building, One Brooklyn Bridge Park, and they have posts for like uh, condo owners who are thinking about selling. So they'll mention it in this building form first before they like publicly list with an agent. So I actually was able to capture them before they listed, but they already were going to sign. But what happened was I was able to get the buy side um,
Nice.
through just a poker game that my friend had introduced me to. She has like a sister who also lives in the building who was looking to upsize, so she was like, my sister is looking for a 3 bedroom. She's in a 2 bedroom right now. I'm like, let's go check it out. We were all like residents in the building. I remember when I did the showing, it was Halloween and I was in like my Harry Potter robe costume doing a showing, which is like really funny.
So
And
funny.
then that was the one that it was very straightforward. It closed,
That
and there was no one else that we were competing with because they priced it wrong. And so,
Well,
yeah.
two things that you just said that I like to point out as a coach is that you do the best thing you can do. And when I was coaching this guy, he was a really handsome Greek guy, but I didn't know anything about him other than he was Greek and he'd been around forever. But I never knew anything deeper than that. And I read his bio and I said, "Who are you? What do you do? This doesn't tell me anything." He's like, "Well, I'm a tennis pro and I love to play tennis and he loves this, this, and this." And I said, "Why don't you say that you're a tennis pro?" He's like, "What does that have to do with real estate?" I said, "Everything." I said, "When you are playing tennis, you are yourself. You are doing what you love to do. And people are attracted to that because they're doing what they love and you're doing it together. And you're not talking real estate." When he changed and he totally did a 360 and changed and he embraced all that. He started doing well. He was looking better. He was dressing differently. He wasn't just all stiff. He became himself. It was really cool to see. So Tiffany does what she loves, and that's poker. And she's meeting people. It's very natural. You're in a natural environment. This time more for hobbyish. I guess you're still probably making money, better making or losing money, but it's more of a hobby. It's not so serious like you were doing before.
Yeah.
I got involved years ago and I still do, but when I got involved, I had no idea it had anything related to real estate. I got involved in charity work and I just love doing charity work. It's just part of who I am. It's part of my heart. I don't tell people they should do charity work. I just said, pick whatever it is. If you golf, golf. If you play tennis, if you cook, if you garden, do those things. So when you are doing what you love to do, then it really resonates and it makes it so easy. Look how fun that was for Tiffany. You were at the poker table and someone needs to sell a place. Oh, you want to buy a place? Let's go take a look. I mean, how that's when it's so fun is when you're putting deals together like that because it's so natural. And I texted my son yesterday after I got off a call. As realtors, we get emails all the time that come through about, some is interesting, some is just click and you delete. But I got one yesterday about this person in Texas. He's a developer, real estate agent, and he sells these communities so different, obviously no land in New York and hardly any land here where I am in California. It's a community around air park. So you basically land your little plane and the cab, the local community cab picks you up and takes you home, and it's all set up in this community and it's all based on having your airplane there, just like if you had a yacht slip or whatever. But it was so cool. So I filled out his form and I said, call me. I want to interview you. Let's talk. So then we spoke yesterday and I don't do commercial or big projects or development at all. I'm strictly residential. And I had a conversation the day before with someone else who was looking to buy land for his cool project, which I won't say yet, but I put these two people together, and he has multiple acres. This person wanted multiple acres. And who knows if that comes together, I'll make a referral fee, and I put people together just by, so I texted or emailed my son and I said, Chase, this is what's so cool. You never know what's going to happen, but you connected people that I think they could do business together. And, you can make a referral fee on the flip side, but I mean, how cool is that? We could be working with people all over.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of your superpower. You're so great at connecting people together and making these connections. In an ideal world, like maybe 10 years down the line, I want to take my real estate business to the point where like I'm not in the weeds of the transaction anymore. I'm more of a rainmaker where
Right.
I just like make money off of referral fees because I'm out there talking to people. I'm like, oh, you should
Right.
talk to this person. And just having my network kind of work for me that way because that's more fun. Like also, it's almost like zeroing in. And this was something that my team lead is coaching me on. She's like, Tiffany, you can do the deals, but you're exhausted at the end of it. We have a team in place that can support you to do that. So why don't you do the part that's fun, which is the lead generation, the talking to people and getting the deal started, and somebody else can take it to the finish line for you once the papers are signed, the ink is dry. Like it's a lock. So just
Right.
keep doing more of that, and like yeah. So that has been the biggest aha like switch adjustment for me of like, okay, what part of this whole there's so many streets to play in a
Right.
transaction, but where can I be the specialist and bring the most value if I have a team supporting the other pieces of it? So
I can answer the question is because we're control freaks and we want to control it all because it's easier for us sometimes just to do it
yeah.
and not try to explain it. But yeah, it's tough. But yes, you're definitely a great connector and lead generation person. We're going to take a quick commercial break and we'll be right back with the poker broker, Tiffany. Welcome back to Mastering the Art of Real Estate. I'm your host, Debbi DiMaggio, and we are here with Tiffany Lee from New York City. Tiffany, when we had lunch the other day, we were talking about something completely different. Now, I don't do this. I'm in Northern California for the most part, a little bit in LA, but strictly residential. You are dipping your toes into affordable housing. And this is a niche that you are starting. I would say you're the queen of this. You are actually, I don't think anyone's doing it. So can you break down how you are helping people invest in property while you're helping? I think one of them you said was someone who was homeless. So how are you getting people into apartments and at the same time you're reaching out to owners? It's a very deep two-part conversation.
It is, and this is one of those spots where you identify a need in the market, and it's like I'm just grind in poker. It's like you're grinding your edge, where you find the one thing you're good at, and you just do it over and over again, and that's kind of where your profits come in from. So affordable housing is a passion of mine because we touched on altruistic capitalism.
Mm.
So it's something where I make money doing it, but I also get the good feelings from doing something positive. Like you mentioned doing charity work. This is my way of kind of like getting in the charity work, but also getting paid for it. So I don't know if it's still, it's like
Oh
altruism. I
gosh,
don't know.
don't short sell
Yeah.
yourself. It's incredible. Tell us the story about what you told me about the getting someone out of a shelter into housing and how that was possible and what the city offers. This is amazing.
So this, let's rewind back to 2020. We were in the middle of COVID. Showings were super weird to do. The market
Mhm.
was the rental market was very, depending on what neighborhoods you were in, it was like dead, or it was maybe I shouldn't use that word to describe. That was a Freudian
No,
slip,
no
but it was
kidding.
just very slow. And so I work with this investor client who owns several multifamilies, and we had a 3-bedroom listing that wasn't moving at all, with your standard market rate tenants where you ask them for, their employment letters, their credit reports, all that good stuff. Those guys weren't coming through. What I was getting was a lot of inquiries for rent subsidized tenants, and I'd never done one of those deals before. But given the environment we were in 2020, where a lot of people were losing their jobs and stopped paying rent completely, a lot of landlords were, particularly the landlord that I was working with, was hurting from that. So we were more open to seeing what other alternative streams of income that are available to landlords. And so I like once I learned more about this program called City FEPS, which is specific to New York City. There's so many pros that it offers landlords, that incentive that makes sense to get the buy-in there, because a lot of times people are scared of what they don't know, and I think that happens a lot in the arena of affordable housing, because a lot of people have preconceived notions about, whatever, like, the tenant mix, or if they were going to pay on time. So there's like an education learning curve that I have to, get landlords comfortable with. A lot of affordable housing vouchers are the math is based on cost of living, right? So a lot of these people are living below the poverty line. A lot of them are currently in shelters. Ranging from like homeless shelters to like domestic violence shelters. It's just people who are in a really tough spot. And so, what these affordable housing rent subsidies allow them to do is to get back on their feet, like help alleviate that where they can live. They pay the landlords like, if not market rate rent, pretty close to it, and the landlords get peace of mind that they're getting a scheduled payment from the city of New York on the first of every month, direct deposited into their account. Like, you don't have to ping your tenant to be like, hey, you forgot to pay rent this
No, it's
this month. Like,
amazing.
they're
When you
like, yeah, yeah,
that was when you told me that, I was just amazed
yeah.
that they just get paid and they don't have to worry.
Mhm.
Um, so it's just, there's so many questions. How do you go, you want to help so many people. How did you go into the shelters? Do you go into the homes where the women who are living, who are, battered with their children? How are you reaching out to these people? And how did you find the one that you did help?
So they've actually reached out to me. So a lot of these clients, they work with housing specialists, but they'll find my listings online, and I noticed that the price point that I was advertising it at triggered a lot of these inquiries for the vouchers because it hit that threshold. So I was like, oh,
Oh,
that makes sense why I'm getting so many inquiries for it. So I looked deeper into it. I had a phone call with a woman who just sent me all her paperwork. So a lot of times they'll ask the question, and I'm like, yeah, we'll look into it, but then they don't follow up with the paperwork. So this particular individual was very on top of her paperwork. So, and this is the case when you have like, when you're working with buyers or regular tenants, like, you give back the energy that you're receiving. So she was
right.
giving me a lot of energy. I wanted to meet her where she was at. So, she was in a homeless shelter that actually shut down like days before she was moved in before, but like they like threw everyone's belongings into the
Oh
street. So
my
it
God.
was not yeah. So it was when she told me that, it felt good that we were able to get something done for her and that I was an instrumental part in making that a reality. Because like the thing that broke my heart was she says to me, Tiffany, you're the first agent I reached out to that treated me like a human being.
No,
Because there's, yeah, so I think that's like, not to poo poo on other agents, but like we're not trained very well on it, and people are very scared of getting into trouble if they say or do something wrong. And I think like I'm so not risk averse in that way because I play poker. I'm like, oh, there's a calculated risk here, but there's such a big payoff at the end, like the implied odds of it. I'm like, okay, like let's see this through, let's navigate how this goes. And there's a lot of front work involved. Like it's not super straightforward to do, but once you go through the process, like it gets more refined and easier. So I'm now at the point where I'm kind of like the evangelist and specialist in that City FEPS program, that, you know, any agents that have questions about how to do it within Compass, like have reached out to me, and I'll, you know, give them
right.
some tactical pointers. And I think it all starts like with brokers understanding how it works and being able to like co-broke them together. And I was kind of running into a brick wall where I would ask other listing brokers, not within, you know, in different brokerages, I won't name names, but
Yeah.
they'll kind of like just leave me on red. And when I ask, hey, you know, does the owner take voucher tenants? And they're just like, we found someone already. Like they'll give you the whole runaround, like, but you know they're totally just lying to
Right.
you. Because I'm like,
So I guess here it would probably be called Section 8. And I I had a client and he said, yes, I take Section 8. And he was the one, he owns a lot of buildings. And he said, yes, I take Section 8. I didn't really know much about it. But I have to assume it's probably like this. But again, in my mind, I thought that would not be a good thing because I also thought, well, it will be someone who's not going to take care of the place. You know, I mean, you just hear things, but without knowing. So yes, it makes us. So I say the word Section 8 because I think people here in California will know what that means. So I think with you have to research it to understand, and I think I'll do a little research to learn. We haven't had people call on that because it hasn't been the price point, but it is good. We have to educate ourselves. And there was actually a building one of our agents had in downtown Oakland, and I saw the photos of the building. It was a big building and it was all Section 8 and it was so clean and so maintained. And I said, is that's a Section 8 building? And he said, yes. And I said, I mean, it was cleaner than most buildings. It was immaculate and it was a very big building. So yes, I just want to point, this is amazing what you're doing. Now let's talk about the part. So we know how you're trying to help these people, and you are able to, if they get you the paperwork, they still, like
yeah.
anyone, have to get you the paperwork. They have to want to do it. It's
Mhm.
not going to be anyone in the shelter because, first of all, just anyone trying to gather paper is a pain in the, no one likes to go digging for their paperwork and all that stuff. But so now you're also trying to get listings and sell investment properties. And so so tell us how you're educating these owners, and are you having seminars, and or is that next? And how, are you making cold calls? How are you doing it to expand
Yeah.
the listing or the sale side?
So as I mentioned before, I was kind of running into a brick wall going through standard rental listings with listing brokers on the other side of it, because that was like an extra barrier to get to the owner, and things get lost in translation. Like I didn't want to play telephone with my client's file if they didn't communicate it correctly. So what I started doing was going just throwing emails to for rent by owners, like just going straight to the owners and saying, hey, I have a rent subsidized client. Are you familiar with this program? And they're not all home runs. Like there's going to be some misses where they're like, oh, I don't know what it is, or I'm not taking those. So you'll get those. But when, like, again, like it's a numbers game, you do the frequency, you do the good thing over and over again, and then you'll get the connection, and that connection makes all the other no's worth it because you've got a system in place. And really what it is like you're investing in the system. Like one hits, but it only took me like 30 minutes to like message all those people and you get the one yes. Like, so, and that's similar to poker too, where you can play a bunch of hands, lose the minimum, but like the few hands that you do play, and you want to win big, you want to win the big pots and lose the minimum when you know you're like beat. Like I've just decided, when I do, and this changed the way I do pitches as well, is the first thing that has to happen is there needs to be a chemistry vibe check. Because if that's absent at the
Right.
first meeting, the rest of the deal is gonna suck. Like,
Right.
yeah, like I'm
Absolutely.
not, yeah, yeah. So that's very important now. So it's good when I send these feeler emails out to the owners, and the ones that are open to it, they're in it for the long haul. The ones that you have to like feel like you're pulling teeth to sell, there's always going to be that wall of like suspicion, and it's just going to be like every time it's a difficult conversation, every time I'm going to dread having the phone call, every like
Right.
so you want there to be like a collaboration vibe from the jump. So, even if I
They
send out
want to be,
it's
they
fine.
want to
Yeah.
understand it. You want them to understand. Anyone you work with, you want them to understand it and ask questions, be part of it. And so what seems easy about, and not easy, but what seems easy on your, let's say your ego part would be, you're actually calling to help them and you're giving them the tools. So that is, to me, so such, it's not even a sell. You're just trying to give them information that could help them. And so it's like, if you, it'll be great if you do it because we're all going to do well, but if you don't, that's okay. But you are educating them about something where they can make money and they can have a committed income without having someone. I mean, people are living in nice buildings who aren't paying rent and they have money and they're not paying rent. So
Yeah.
people who squatted during COVID in the Hamptons, for gosh sakes, they, millions of dollars. So it's, yeah, you're educating them about what they can do. And if they don't get it, they're lost and maybe they'll circle back, but it makes it easy because you're actually out there doing good by educating them about something most people don't know about. So what's a rent on a 1, 2, and 3 bedroom, just to give us an idea, what a subsidy would be?
Yeah, so it actually varies. So there is a standard rate for one like for every bedroom count and family size. So and then those ranges for bedrooms will change based on how many utilities are included with the rent. So if no utilities are included, it's going to be lower than the max allowed amount where all utilities are included. But there's like different like variations of how they mix it up. So and they also renew these amounts every year. So 2025 amounts will look different from 2024. And it's always increased. I've never seen it decrease. So like if you're an investor and you have a fixed rate mortgage for the next 30 years and you just put these tenants in there, you can very reliably count on the city to increase the rent. So it's kind of like spelling out the poker strategy for them, like street by street you're making more money like as it goes along. So why not do it? And just there's just a lot of front loading of the paperwork. But once you're in the system, you're in the system, and just don't be a crappy landlord. Don't be a slumlord, and
Right.
you'll be fine, right?
Exactly. Exactly. And then if, let's say the rent is 4,000 a month, or let's say the rent is going for 4,000 a month, but the city pays 3, can you ask for an extra 1,000? Is
You're
that
not
allowed?
allowed to do that. You're not allowed to do that. But yeah, so that's why I try to like just keep it within the ranges of where that subsidy is already close to the market rent, because you're
Right.
it's not so far of a stretch to do. And I was
Right.
talking to another broker who actually called me today because she was like, "You actually successfully managed to do these deals? Like how?" And she was from a different brokerage too. She's like, "You were able to? How? Tell me." Because it's such an uphill battle. Like a lot of people, when they get the vouchers, they're just like, I don't know what to do with this. And like they'll maybe spend some time trying to help this client and then run into the same problem I did where you're talking to other listing agents and then they don't want to do it. So it's just a fight every single step of the way. So it's just, it took some time to figure out how to like finesse it and kind of find the workaround. And so yeah, where was I going with this? I lost my train of thought. Yeah.
When they get a voucher,
Yeah.
so who is, I thought the money went right into the account of the owner. What's the voucher?
So yeah, so the voucher is the rent subsidy. That's the amount the city will put into the owner's bank account. So with city FEP, sometimes what happens is the either the city will pay all of it, or if the tenant meets a certain income threshold, they'll pay a part of it as well. but it never like surpasses what that cap is for
Oh,
to qualify for it. So yeah, they're not allowed. You're not allowed to add rent on top,
okay.
but like yeah, the workaround to that is just shopping in areas like you. We tell this to our buyers too. Like, don't shop outside of your budget. So it's
Right.
the same. It's the same strategy. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah,
Oh my gosh, we're working on one right now. We're like,
yeah.
how are they trying to buy this? You're like 150,000 off.
Right. Like you're not
Right.
even pre-approved for this much. We're like
Yeah.
we're wasting our time here. So yeah, that's kind of how just to make the argument, the sales pitch easier is
Right.
like you don't want to be too far apart from where they're at.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, let's pivot. That is definitely altruistic and it's definitely a feel good story. So I wish you so much success with that. Let's
Yeah.
go over to how you bring a residential co-op apartment condo house to market. What is the strategy for bringing it to market to getting it sold in New York City?
Okay, so this is just like so many steps. Where do I even begin? So the first piece, right, is obviously I will do a comp, like sales CMA, see what's closed. I always tell my clients if they're selling, do not go off what the current asking sale prices are because those are not real numbers. They could be aspirational numbers. They can, if it's inflated, it could be like the agent only listed it for that much because that was the only way they would get the listing, like exclusive sign. So I'm like, don't pay attention to those. Like the market will speak and we will see those days on market rack up for the listings that aren't priced correctly. So I always say go off sold data. I look back a year, but if there's something that's even closer, great. I keep my comps as apples to apples as possible. If it's a condo that I'm selling, I'm only comparing it to other condos. If it's a co-op, I'm only comparing it to other co-ops. And New York City is unique in that way because we have co-ops, and a lot of people from out of state, they're just like, what is that? So you're owning like shares of a building, but you're not owning real property. And what I tell a lot of people in New York City is like the buy-ins for co-ops is less than what it would be for a similarly sized condo in that neighborhood, but the maintenance is higher. You don't really, sometimes depending on the board, you don't have as great a flexibility of like leasing out the unit if you wanted. Like there's a board package that you need to submit. Um, so before the market, what I'll do is first figure out the pricing strategy, figure out how I want to position it because, getting a listing live and not having any traffic to your open house is you're not doing anything. So you want to make sure you're setting yourself up for success and for action to actually happen. So pricing very important. I'm a huge like proponent for like good listing photos, and I know you and I talked about this too when we
Yeah.
met up. Like you have these like beautiful like AI generated images that you use in your marketing materials, and coming from a graphic design background, like people eat with their eyes first. I like yeah, people
So
love looking at real estate porn for lack of a better word. That's like what they called it. So I like to have so the way I do my listing photos is I'm telling a story with the pictures. So my lead photo is always the most inviting one. Usually it's the living room or whatever the
yeah.
nicest room. Like sometimes I'll use the kitchen because that's the nicest room because it's like it's a pretty chef's kitchen and the living room is just like it's a living room. So it varies from listing to listing. I'll make adjustments based on that. And then so the listing order will go most inviting picture, then bedroom, bathroom is last, then the exterior photo is last. Like formulaically, you'll see me follow that order.
Yeah.
And then listing copy, I had this great note from one of my first real estate mentors is while I'm doing those sales comps, I'll also look at those agents' listing copy because it's comparable and see what kind of language they use. And I kind
Yeah.
of mimic something similar to that as well. But AI has like ChatGPT, and we've talked about ChatGPT too.
Oh,
It's
great. It's so
so
great.
amazing.
No,
That
it's so
has
helpful.
like taken that workload off. But I used to love creative writing too. So I used to spend hours like loving
Oh,
doing
me
listing
too.
copy. And then
Yeah.
like when you have too many listings and other stuff to do, I'm like, oh yeah, I don't have time for this anymore. Like what was
It
once a
takes
joy is
hours
like,
and
yeah,
hours, and it helps so much. And like I was telling, I'd like to make sure we tell people, yes, you can do it through, you write up a little, then you put it in and say you can make it long or short. You
Mm,
need it short for maybe the MLS, but longer for your brochure,
yeah.
but also to read it because it's not all of it follows the HUD rules. And
Yeah.
so you want to be careful, you read it. And also they don't know, it doesn't know everything, but it certainly makes some nice wording and creative describing words that you maybe didn't think of, and
Right.
it really saves a lot of time. I really like it. I
Yeah.
do have to get from you, I want you to tell the audience, but I our houses are always painted and staged, and we do work before we bring them to market, new lighting and everything. So our houses are always vacant, and so, well, stage. They're not living there, but they're staged, and so we always do professional photographs. But you were saying, because you do some rentals as well, and this is what I want to do in our rentals because we obviously don't stage our rentals. But you said that there's an AI app that you're using that's free, and I forgot. So you need to tell us here and then text it to me so I can use it for some rentals.
I forgot the name off the top of it because there were a
Yeah,
few, and it's like there's so especially with rentals, right? At a certain price point, you want to keep your marketing expenses really low. Otherwise, it's like I wouldn't splurge on professional photography for like a sub $3,000 rental listing, right? Because then, like, some of the listing services that we use in New York will charge you a fee per
oh, right.
day. So it all adds up
Mhm.
where, like, it's very possible you can lose money taking on a
Right.
listing.
That's true.
So part of the pre marketing is being very strategic with, obviously I still want to put, enticing images out there. And I guess I want to say I'm blessed with an eye for like with a photographic eye. So I like for rentals, I can take photos with my phone that are almost comparable to like professional photography. Like the iPhone cameras are so good now. Like I wouldn't use it for like don't get me wrong, I wouldn't use it for a $5 million listing or anything. Like any sale listing, you will get a professional photographer. Do not worry, future clients. But if it's like a rental,
I know, right?
they're like, what is she talking about? Um,
I know.
but if it's a rental, like I'll take like the pictures, I'll like compose it like how I would like even with my professional photographers at my sales listing, I'm such a control freak about the composition anyway. Like they'll
Right.
come at me with an angle, I'm like, that's not the angle that I want. And they're like,
Right.
they either love
I
or
would
hate it.
have to say, not
Yeah,
everyone can do that because
yeah,
I definitely for rentals, I'll get the professional photographer to come in.
yeah,
But if you could, there are people, obviously, they do great work with their iPhones. But the app you were talking about, or the
yeah,
AI tool, was taking an unfurnished home and putting furniture. So
yeah.
three
Or,
virtual staging. That's what
yeah,
it is, virtual staging,
yep.
and it's a free app. I think you said.
It's free for like the first 5 or 10 images. So
Oh, well, that's a
I
lot. That's a lot
yeah,
of images. I would like be happy with 2 images.
yeah, so you
For
space it out.
rental.
Yeah, per
Yeah,
month, or make a bunch
yeah.
of dummy emails and keep getting free
Oh
images.
my god. No, that is a that's a
Yeah,
good tool for sure to have.
exactly. Yeah.
Um, and then, all right, so well, we're getting towards the end. Of course, I knew it would fly by. What advice would you give to your 25-year-old real estate self, not poker self, your 25-year-old self about, your being in real estate, getting into real estate, and how you feel now and what you would have told yourself back then?
I would have said learn inventory. Like if business is slow because you don't have clients yet, and which is understandable. Also, like when you're 25, I had a baby face at 25. I like still look almost a little too, like not to pat myself on the back, but sometimes looking too young can be a curse in real estate
Right, right.
because like they're like, I'm not going to trust you with $1 million. You look like a child.
Yeah, right.
So, so I think that was something that like kind of gave me a chip on my shoulder when I was 25. I'm like, I have no business. Nobody trusts me, blah, 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 blah. Because I look so like, I look like I'm 15. But I would say if that's the case for now, learn as much as you can about inventory, become, get a mentor. And that would be the first thing. Like attach yourself to a senior agent, sit their open houses, watch what they do, get best practices from them. I started off at a boutique firm. So like I had maybe 2 mentors there that like probably laid the foundation for how I do everything now. But when I moved to a bigger brokerage, there was more opportunities to see how different people work and partner on other listings together. So that, if I can go back and rewind to my 25-year-old self, it's like find someone smarter than you and just learn and be a sponge. That's how you'll build your book. And then on your downtime, just learn the inventory and learn about what you're selling, so you know what you're talking about. Yeah.
And apps, that is 100%. And I think what happens where the block comes, because I tell the agents who are new as they come through, I said, Adam, my husband, he loves to sit at the office. He likes to work from the office. I like to work from everywhere. It could be anywhere, but he is at the office and he is talking to all the different agents who have questions and problems. He's talking to attorneys. He's talking to other agents. It's sit there and suck it up. And there's a lot of people who have gone before and done that, and they are amazed how much they learn. But I think what happens is some of these people, because I'll tell them to do that, many of them will do it. Some of them will just, they're not doing anything. They're like, okay, I'm not selling a house today. They don't realize that they should be learning the inventory, exactly what you said. They should be doing open houses. They should be sitting in the office listening to the secretaries talk. They're actually doing a lot of work, and there's a lot of information that's coming between the agents and the office managers. So yes, you absolutely, those are right on. And it's not something that is, something that you should overlook. It's those newer agents should absolutely be doing that.
Yeah. I think, one last note on that, like as a newer agent, because I know you and I had talked about this when we
Yeah.
were hanging out in New York, is a lot of newer agents are so hesitant to give up their equity on a deal, but they don't,
Right.
like with a senior, like they're just like, well, it's all mine. I'm like, and sometimes and I run into this with newer agents too. I'm like, you have to give the senior agent a bit of a split, because 0% of $0 of the thing you're not going to close because you don't know what you're doing. Like that equity, like you can have 100% of $0 is still $0, right? So
Exactly.
get it? Yeah. So it helps so much just having a support system to just get, like, don't just check your ego. That's what I would tell you. Check your
Yeah,
ego.
it's your education. You're paying for your education. So for a couple deals that you do with a senior agent, it's just education, it's training. It's instead of coaching where you're not getting anything. I mean, you're getting knowledge, but you're going to get knowledge and a paycheck because the deal will close if you work with a senior agent who knows what they're doing and can get it through. So
Yeah.
excellent. Thank you so much, Tiffany Lee. How do we get in touch with you?
So best way to reach me is through email. It's Tiffany Lee, TiffanyLee at compass.com, COMPASS.com. You can follow me on Instagram. I'm at Tiffany Sells New York, exactly like it's spelled. And I look forward to hearing from anyone, like, any new fans that we get from this podcast. Feel free to hit me
Call
up.
her to learn about the affordable housing. I think that's
Yeah.
amazing. I think that's really great. And you should start doing seminars. I just put more on your plate.
That's a great idea. Yeah. Email me and sign up for my mailing list for the future affordable housing seminar. That's the plug. There's a call to action.
Perfect. You did it. Awesome. Always coaching. Well, thank you so much, Tiffany Lee. We had a great time with the poker broker, and I look forward to seeing you soon. So let me know when you're coming here, and I will definitely be back to New York soon. Thank
Yes.
you so much for joining Mastering the Art of Real Estate. I'm your host, Debbi DiMaggio, and that's a wrap.
Tune in each week for another episode of Mastering the Art of Real Estate with host Debbi DiMaggio. Here Fridays, noon Eastern on the Bold Brave TV network. Tune in to where real estate matters matter.